Hi, this is Dr. Wendy Coren, and we are here in absolutely beautiful Lake Placid, New York, to demonstrate the evaluation of a horse biomechanically and how hands-on the joints of the horse can make them move faster and be more comfortable. We're going to begin the evaluation by feeling the mobility in the joints of the front legs from the coffin joints up through the knee and into the shoulder. Then we're going to move back and evaluate the motion of the hind legs from the coffin joints through the hock and the hip and the stifle. Then we're going to move on from that and analyze the neck. Can it move left and right? Can it flex up and down? And then we're going to move up to the top line in the back and feel for the mobility in between each and every one of the vertebrae and the ribs, and whatever is not moving correctly, we're going to restore that mobility. Beginning with the right front, we look for motion in the coffin joint, in the fetlock, in through the carpus or knee, back up through the shoulder and elbow, and looking for the front of the shoulder and the flexibility range of motion of the entire front limb. There's snuggling involved. Moving on to the left front, we're both looking for the range of motion there and the comparison of how that limb moves in relation to the other limb. We look not only locally where Dave is repeating those ranges of motion, but also at the expression of the horse as to whether or not there's a difference between how he feels left side to right side. And you may have noticed he paid more attention to the stretching of the left front than he did to the right front. Moving on to the hind limbs. Again, we're going to see how does it move at the coffin joint? How does it move at the fetlock? What's our range of motion and flexibility through the hock and the front of the hock at the tarsus? How does it move through the stifle and range of motion in the hip up into the sacroiliac? We watch to see, does he have the stability to continue standing? Where does he have to shift his weight? And we look for it feeling good, a sigh, it's been stretched out. And sometimes you get expressions of appreciation. If it hurts, sometimes you get expressions of not so much. Again, comparing the left side to the right side, we're able to make judgments as to whether or not the stability exists on the hind end, whether there's proper stability in the front end and they can shift their weight up and off the back, and notice whether it is equally flexible or equally stiff depending on the specific horse and the specific situation. Next, we evaluate the cervical spine or the neck. We look at him head on to see if his eyes are level. We feel his neck to notice whether or not there's any areas of discomfort that he's demonstrating with light touch. Anyone is sore if you poke at them. We look for mobility at that atlas, at that top vertebra, and how it relates up to the front, through the top of the head at the occiput, or as Dave is palpating now, at the temporomandibular joint, which joins the skull to the jaw. Asking him to turn his head to the left, we see whether he does it easily or avoids this by moving his body all around. And that's a really nice range of motion for our older gentleman. But he's fighting the full range of motion, letting us know that there's resistance both muscularly and skeletally. If you watch his tongue licking and chewing and giving us evidence that this is increasing his comfort as opposed, there you go, and a beautiful shift. And breathe. There you go. And shake it out. Again, equine work, you're looking for making your equine partner a more comfortable and more flexible, more agile, helping both their comfort level and their performance level. We look for differences as to whether he flips his head completely upside down to the right versus not so much to the left. And then you evaluate what's the cause of that compensation. Typically, it means that at that topmost bone, it's easier for him to flex the lower neck than the top. And he's doing it in a way to cooperate, but also to be as comfortable as he can in the range of motion. Our job is to make sure that we make him do it correctly as well as comfortably. Moving through the occiput, where the skull bone meets the top of the cervical spine, is what allows that horse to have maximum flexion. Stretching it out, opening up that articulation, watching his eyes, noticing that they get more relaxed, more attentive, as opposed to wide-eyed and concerned about the behavior. Every expression matters. Right, Alpine? And then rechecking. Whether you're a professional doing hands-on work or you're an owner who's attempting to make your horse feel more comfortable and only use the skills that you have been trained for, either way, we're looking for feedback. You check and you recheck. You touch and then you make a change, touch it again. You can only know if you've made a difference if you have a way of observing. And our way of observing is with our eyes, with our hands, making sure we're actually taking into account all of the different behaviors that that horse is capable of demonstrating for us. In order to effectively evaluate the spine of a horse after the cervical spine, we need to be able to get up and above. So we use, in our practice, a bale made out of styrofoam to stand on and get another perspective. That allows us to move our hands, evaluating the mobility of each vertebra in relation to the one above and the one below, using the proper angle. Because if you push at something from the wrong angle, you're not going to get mobility, you're going to get resistance. So understanding anatomy and knowing there's a 45-degree angle through the withers, which gradually shifts straight up and down to a 90-degree angle, one has to make sure that they're feeling along the proper mobility of that spine and how it's supposed to move. Yes, and we got an absolute agreement from the man in charge, right? When everything moves, you'll see that as Dave pushes on the back, the head bobs up and down, demonstrating that there isn't interference between the back end and the front end. If it stops somewhere, we know that's where it could be restricted in motion. If it's restricted in motion, we will add motion into that area using a manipulation art. We check on either side with the ribs attached to that spine to see whether or not there's been any aberrant mobility within the rib cage, and they'll demonstrate if there was by having a twitch, a panniculus, a way of showing that that area has less flexibility and therefore more irritation. And then we ask him to butt tuck, to bring his hind end up and demonstrating can he move from his butt all the way up through his withers. And as you can see, the mobility, as he's licking me as this is being done, doesn't concern him because it's normal motion. And pain-free normal motion is what we're looking for. And that is a typical evaluation and correction. We can add more to this using modalities if the situation calls for it. And I'm not telling you what he said.